All right, so not sure how this is going to go. At some point, I'm going to have to figure out how to string all this together into one video. I guess I'm going to have to become a video editor. Wanted to show you guys what I've been doing for these dirted tanks. This is something you've probably seen other people do before, and I just think it's important to note. A lot of dirted tanks, people just pour the dirt in and then put the sand on top or whatever they're going to put in between. That's fine. I just find that if you're in a tank and you have some plants you want to pull out and they've got heavily rooted, if all you've done is just put your dirt in the bottom and a layer of sand on top, the likelihood is you're going to pull out a chunk of dirt with the roots of that plant and pollute your water. Now, granted, not everybody mucks around in their tank trying to pull plants out, but I'd rather a little bit of prevention instead of trying to figure out a cure later. So I use these. I've got a bunch here that were filled up from the last tank that I did. You can see there are all these little mesh bags. They're only a few bucks on Amazon. They're probably not even half full, so they lay down flat. And then we're using, I don't know if you can see that, the Miracle Grow Organics. It's a really nice soil, and it has nothing in it that are going to hurt the fish or the shrimp. So I usually just grab the bag, open it up, and I'll put, maybe a shovel or so full, maybe not even quite that much, somewhere in about that vicinity, just so that it will lay down flat. You don't have to fill the bags up, and the roots will get in here and pull the nutrients out, but you won't have to worry about pulling all that back out with you if you decide if you decide to pull your plants out or anything. So it's nice to have that mesh bag there. Now, a lot of people will tell you you need to float your soil and pull out all the biologics, all the sticks and twigs and leaves. You could do that. I don't really think there's a point to it. I've never had an issue with that before. The last couple tanks I've set up I've all done the same way: mesh bags, Miracle Grow potting mix, and we go. I'm going to do a couple of different things on this one, but I'll show you those as we go along. So I'm going to clear up this space so I can put the aquarium down on here, and I'll show you how I'm going to set up the substrate. Okay, so set the tank down here, cleaned up some of the mess a little bit so we can see what's going on. Like I said, guys, just take your bags, and you want to make sure you've got the area covered. Now, like I said, I put them in here just so that I don't have to worry about issues later with pulling them up. Now, might have enough here. Might need to add a little bit, not sure. I made up a bunch of bags when I did the last tank, and wasn't certain how that was going to go. So, looks like I'm going to have to fill up a couple more bags just to make up the difference. So I try to cover it all. I know it's not necessary. If you watch any number of videos from any of the other aquarium channels like MD Fish or anybody else that does this sort of thing, a lot of times you'll note that they're only putting nutrients where they intend to plant. I have a slightly different view on this at this point. My reasoning is I don't know entirely how long I'm going to have this particular tank set up. So for that reason, I try to make sure I've got some really nice coverage all over. I think we'll fill up one more. I think I've got one more bag, and that's probably all I've got here. So the reasoning is, if you watch another channel, they're going to set their tank up, plant it, and then a lot of them will keep that tank run for, 6 or 8 months or something like that. Maybe not even that long. Okay, now This gets tricky because I want to keep the black to the front just in case. I don't want to see that in behind anywhere. And there we go. There we go. We'll do something like that, I guess. And that will sort of give us the coverage that we're looking for. A little gap in the middle. That's not too big a deal. Put the white ones in the back so that you don't see the bags from the front. And actually, I'll pull these bags back a little bit so that when I put the sand and such in, we won't see the bags at all. Okay, so there's our base. And again, that's just Miracle-Gro potting mix. It's all organic, no fertilizers, nothing like that in there. So there's one other thing that I like to do. Now, the last time, I pretty much destroyed my porch, or my patio rather. I bought lava rock, like barbecue lava rock, cleaned it, and then smashed the snot out of it with a hammer and a bucket on my patio, and made a lot of cracks and breaks in it, just so I could get it small enough to put in. So I like to put lava rock in simply because it's a great place for your biologics to get into. It will help your substrate act as a fertilizer, which is important, especially in a tank that I'm setting up to breed live fish in. It's going to need to be filtered as strongly as humanly possible. So if I can help the substrate do a little bit of filtering as well. So I went on Amazon and I found this, what they call a bonsai mix. So it's pretty small stuff. Almost looks like gravel. It is all volcanic rock, lava rock. So this should do the same feature as what I had in my snowball shrimp tank, but this is just a little bit more practical. Gives it a little bit more control. Pretty good sized bag. It's called Stand Broil. So this one is actually, this one is for fire bowls and fire pits, barbecues, but it's a nice small size, so I don't have to smash it up. So I'm going to put a layer of this down. Not too particular where it's going to end up, where it's going to go. Probably try and keep it a little bit away from the front. Put a nice layer of that down. I don't think I'm going to use a whole bag, so I don't want this thing to get too high before I even get any sand on it. Just brush it around a little bit, fill in the spaces. So there we go. It's like it got into the back there. That's okay, not a big deal. It doesn't have to be perfect, just enough. Slight tip to the back maybe. Oh, that's a bigger piece. We'll get rid of that for the moment. And maybe I'll try and get some of this gravel out of the front here. Looks like most of it is below the black line, so you won't see it anyway. So just sort of slightly starting to grade it towards the back a little bit. So there we go. That gives us a nice layer. It's not very deep of lava rock on top. That'll help the roots, give them something to grip into. It'll help with the filtration, and it'll leave our nutrient layer locked down in the bottom. Now I've got a whole bunch of leftover bags of sand that I'm going to use first, because quite honestly, I have another bag of sand that I bought that's just regular black blasting sand, and I'm not sure how they're going to mix. So I'm going to get rid of all the same sand that I have first and figure it from there. So we'll just start dumping in. Yes, I know a lot of people are going to comment that I didn't wash any of this. You know, I've never had an issue before with this. You know, as long as you realize that you're going to have a period of time where you're going to have to deal with a little bit of cloudiness, a little bit of particulate in your water. Just filter it out appropriately. You can wash all this off. It'll save you a little bit of, maybe a little bit of agony in the future. But honestly, I really don't think it's of super critical importance. I've never really worried about it, to be perfectly honest. So there we go. That gives us a start. I think I'm going to leave this little bag aside. It's not going to be enough to cover it. I've got a much bigger bag here, and this will be sort of our top layer. And the only reason I'm using two different kinds of sand is just to use up what I've got. So I'm going to keep the other stuff on the bottom. This will make my top layer. Although, to be honest, they look very much the same to me. So we got a nice, thick layer of that in the tank. Probably only saw the bag there, sorry. All right. Grate it down. Now, that should keep all of our nutrients locked down. Here we go. Little grade to the back. Now, you realize that's taking up a lot of space. And that's true. There's a lot of substrate in here. But that substrate, that whole process, is why my tanks don't require a whole hell of a lot of maintenance on a day-to-day to take care of. Mainly because of that substrate. Dirt, lava rock, sand, lots of it to keep everything locked down. It allows an anaerobic or anoxic environment underneath of the sand to do the filtration for a different type of bacteria to grow. And that's how you get crystal clear, healthy water for your fish with practically no maintenance. But you do sacrifice a good part of your tank. I'll show you where we're at. If I come down here and I look at our substrate. Look how deep that is. Look how deep that is. That's why we do this. Okay, I know it looks a lot, but that will save me so much aggravation in the future and will allow the tank to start up so much quicker. Now, also, not to mention in this tank, I'm going to be putting on a filter that's been running already on my 20-gallon tall. That tank is being decommissioned today. It's already been moved across the room. I have the fish being loaned out, so they'll be taken care of. So all I've got to do is get this up and start planting it. So we'll come back for that in a moment. Okay, so got the tank set up. I dropped a piece of wood in here I pulled from another tank, so I can get that done. Now, this is going to be a breeding tank, so we're not going to escape it too heavily. I think we're going to come in here. Now, this has been in the water for a long time, but we'll just try to blend it together a little bit. And not really sure where we're going with this. Haven't really got a plan up, but because it's a breeding tank, I'm really not too concerned about scaping it. The reality is this has got to be set up in such a way that there's a lot of places that the fish can hide. I'm going to probably breed some live bearers in here, and I really don't have any intention of having a grow out tank. So some of the babies will definitely be lost, I'm sure. But one of the best things that you can do in that case is that looks maybe just a little too centered. Maybe we just got to go a little off center with this. So yeah, with the babies having or being growing up in the very same tank, then you definitely need to provide them with a lot of cover. So I'm not going to worry too much about scaping this because it's going to be planted. Now what I'm going to do here, I'm going to show you how to plant a tank just with your cuttings. Now, granted, I have a few tanks here, so I have a few more cuttings to choose from, but I'm going to be using pretty much all of the plants out of the old 20-gallon tall, or as many of them as I can. I'll take a bunch of cuttings of the temple grass. I'm going to try not to use the Cessiflora, but I might end up doing so temporarily. I'm going to take some very short cuttings of those to put them down. I'll take all the Anubias and the Bucephalandra out, and I'll plant it in here as well. And I'll sort of give you an idea how I'm going to propagate that. I'm going to cut them very short. I'm going to take one piece, cut it into several to propagate it and plant it. I'll show you that later so you know how to make the most out of your plants when you have them. Which means that this tank is going to take some time to grow in, but that's fine. It's going to take some time to settle in. And then once I get the breeding pair of fish, it's going to take them a while before they start breeding. So hopefully by then, the plants will have grown in to provide sufficient cover for them. If not by then probably by the second or third time that they mate and give birth to some young. But we'll plant it up as well as we can. I've got to take a break for a moment because I've got to go and pull all of those plants or free them from the rocks and everything in the other aquarium. And I'm going to make a bit of a mess doing so. So I'm going to pause this here and I'll come back and show you the planting shortly. Okay, so I've recovered as many of the plants as I think I can out of the other aquarium without tearing it down. Some of the plants are just in too deep and they're going to require me to empty the tank before I can transplant them, so we'll have to do that at a later time. So I'll plant what I have now and I'll give you a general feel for what's happening. Now, like I said, I'm doing this with plants that I've taken from my other tanks. I have some plants that I've removed just simply because they weren't doing well in the tank that they were in, and then some that are coming out just because the tank is being shut down. So I have 3 plants first that I took from my orange cherry shrimp tank, and strictly because I really don't feel like they were getting the nutrients that they needed. So I want to try and replant them in a dirted tank, see how we go. So I have a suspicion, I think they might all be some version of an Echinodorus. Don't remember 100%, but I'm pretty sure that's what they were. Now I'll worry about the I'll worry about the leaves and the sand on those leaves and everything a little bit later. But that should grow up to be a bright red plant. I think that was like a red devil or some kind of a red Echinodorus. And then I've got a couple of these in here. Not entirely sure just yet where we're going to put them. I think we're going to get one of them and maybe we'll put it in between these two right here somewhere. That'll be all right. Bury him up. Just get a couple splashes of red in this tank for sure. All right, and I think maybe we'll get this guy back here. There should be plenty of light for him once we get everything going. So I think that'll be all right back there. Oh, I did a terrible job of getting that in the ground, didn't I? Let's try that again. Grief. Without burying half the plant. There we go. A little better that time, I think. It'll all straighten itself out once we get a little water in. So, there we go. There. I think that'll have the room to grow up there nicely. They've never quite done very well in that orange tank. I'm not sure why. I don't know if it's just a matter of the stratum just doesn't have enough nutrients to support that. Maybe I'm not fertilizing it often enough. Maybe it was a lighting issue. But before they die altogether, because they've been slowly dying since I put them in that tank, I'll put them in here and we'll see where they go. Now, I've got a bunch of Anubis that I've pulled off of the rocks of my other tank. And we'll have to figure out what we want to do with that. And I know I didn't get all of it. I had one of them break apart on me. And like I said, I can't get the crypts out of there for one reason. Now, what I do with my Anubis, and I think I've probably mentioned this before, I hate gluing them to rocks. So what I typically do with Anubis is I'll find somewhere I want it to be, and I'll just take it, I'll leave the rhizome above ground, and I'll pinch the roots under a rock. And that way, it stays anchored down where I wanted it. No problems with that. And later, if I decide that I want to use that plant elsewhere, it's still available to me. I don't have to try and peel it off of a rock like I did with these ones. Now, having said that, the other thing that this accomplishes is it allows those roots to get through the sand and into the soil where they'll find nutrients. That way, your Anubis probably won't fall apart and die like you find many of them do. Now this one, I'm not so sure. I didn't get it peeled off the rock very well, and it looks like I might be covering up a bit of that rhizome. Roots are really small on that one, so I'm not sure how well that's going to go. The really big Anubis that I had in that tank, I've pulled out and put that. I've put that in my other 20-gallon long, my Orange Sunkist tank. I like the plant. It just never did really good in the other tank. We'll see. It fills a hole there right now. We'll see how well that plant does. I have a suspicion that it may not do very well in that tank. So the other thing too, guys, if you're doing any kind of planting with a dry tank, do make sure that you very often go through and keep your plants wet. All right? I mean, you don't have to soak them every couple of seconds, but they do have to be kept wet. So now what I have to do is I have to plant all of the micro swords, Sagittarius, dwarf sag. Now, I know a lot of people don't like this stuff. I understand that because it spreads like absolute craziness in your tank. However, if you're going to have a live bearer tank, then you want a lot of cover. Dwarf sag will grow very rapidly, and it will create a very, very thick carpet eventually for smaller baby fish to hide in, which is what we're looking for. Now, I really don't have any kind of method to where I'm planting these. I've got an absolute ton of them. I definitely ordered too much. However, that's fine. It just means that we won't have to wait nearly as long for this to grow in and take off. This will provide a cover for all of the baby fish that we're hoping to have anyways. I've decided, I think what we're going to put in here are a koi swordtail. I know they're not exactly a difficult fish to breed. They're not a highly sought after fish. I find they are kind of pretty. I think they will look good in a tank that's kind of black like this one is, or as dark as this one is. I'm trying to leave room for the crypts that I have to plant, and I want some taller plants across the back section. We'll pull up some of the temple grass that I've got. That piece is just coming apart. Let's just put that aside. I've got some temple grass in the other aquarium, so I'll pull that apart And we'll put that in here as well, just for something across the back. But I'm pretty sure this dwarf sage will grow in enough that, heck, you probably won't hardly even see anything in the back. Once it does, this will just be a carpeted mess, which is fine. That's what we want in a breeding tank. We're not trying to make the tank look pretty. We're not trying to we're not trying to keep shrimp in this tank. We don't need big open spaces, although that would make it a lot easier to catch the babies, that's for sure. I definitely have a whole lot of this stuff, I will say. I think I might have overdone it. It looked like at the time that a couple of pots wasn't going to be enough, so I grabbed several. And I don't think I needed as many as I grabbed. So, like I said, I'm trying, if you see there's some open spaces in around here and over here, I'm trying to keep areas open to put the crypt in later. And across the back and in around here, I'm going to keep this open for some of that temple grass to get put in. That's sort of the long-term plan on those. I might well just have too much of this stuff, to be perfectly honest with you. I want to keep that middle area open because I think I'm going to put some crypts in there. Right in the middle here, right by this guy. So, one more really big clump, I guess we can just drop in all at once. And I think I'm going to put that in over here. Like so, and we can get the crypts around it. And have some liliopsis that somehow found its way out of the tank that I was working on. And I'm just going to ball it all up and stuff it in here, and we'll see how it does too. Can't hurt any. Why not? Extra plants, extra filters, right? So I know that doesn't look exactly fantastic at the moment. That's to be expected. It's not going to. Especially until I get the crypts in here and I get some taller plants up there. But at the moment, I think that's not a bad start to it. Just drop a couple more of these little ones in here. Now, the one thing I will say is when you put that layer of lava rock down, planting into it, especially in the areas that are slightly more shallow towards the front where there's a little bit less sand perhaps, you're going to find that your tweezers don't quite want to push through. That's all right. They will go. Now, like I said, I realize it's not the prettiest scape. I wasn't setting out to build pretty. What I want is functional. I want all that Sagittarius to grow in thick, give me a nice healthy carpet, places for the little fry to hide. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to set it up on our stand. I'm going to fix the line of paint across the back that didn't go right up to the rim before I do that. Then once I have it filled up, I will come back and we'll see if we can't get the crypts planted in here, get some lights on it, and I'll look at the final setup. Until then. I almost forgot, guys, one other thing. I mentioned I was going to show this to everybody. If you buy plants or you take plants out of your own aquarium, understand that what you have is probably a lot more than one plant. As you can see here, this plant I let get very long. It was growing up in the aquarium like that. You can see there's roots coming everywhere. and each one of these nodes is a plant. So what you can do here with something like this, if you're not in a rush for your plants to grow, take this and cut it just above that node and plant this piece in the ground. It doesn't have to have roots. Mine just happened to because I was leaving them. And again, here, we have leaves here, but we're going to need to plant that in the ground. So this is probably going to get put in the ground here. These leaves will be above it. So let's cut it here. And I can put that in the ground and that'll grow. And again, same thing here. Several plants. I mean, here I can just cut this off. We can plant that one. I can break this off here and we can plant that. Same thing, each one of these I can take apart. They already have a nice long stem. I can put them in the ground and they will grow. And then when I come up to this sort of stuff here, I can do the same thing. I'm going to cut just above the leaves right here. And I'm going to put the rest of this, in fact, I'll cut this twice. I'll put the rest of this in the ground. And in fact, I could probably plant that one as well. So you can take one stalk that you get from a pet store and cut it down several times if you're not in a hurry for this and let it grow. And over time, cut and replant, cut and replant. Stem plants are super easy to propagate. You just cut them above one of the leaf nodes where you want it to grow from and plant the rest again. Do that over and over again. You'll have a fully planted tank. It's what I've been doing in most of my tanks. I'm going to do it in this tank as well, probably to a slightly more of a degree because I don't have a lot of temple grass that's growing in my aquarium. So I'm going to have to plant pieces of the stem and wait for them to grow. But if you keep your tank fertilized, it'll take off, especially stuff like temple plant, Limnophilia sessiflora, dwarf sage, any of those fast growing plants. It really doesn't take much of the plant to take off and start new shoots and new growth. So just a pointer, guys, when you buy a bundle of plants from the pet store, you don't have to plant that bundle all in one piece, and you don't have to leave each piece that long. You can cut them in half or in thirds and plant them again. As long as it's a stem plant, a reasonably quick grower, it'll take off for you and grow like crazy. So I'm going to do that now before I move the tank. I'll come back when I figure out how to plant the cryptocorn. Okay, guys, so I've managed to free up some of the crypts. Some of them came out nicely, some not so much, but on some of these, look at the roots on these things. So if you pull them out like this, you really don't need to keep all that. You can quite safely just take that good chunk of that, break them off. Even that's probably too long, and plant them from there. So I got a spot. I want to get a couple of these in that I was looking at. I know some of these roots are probably going to get left up above the ground. That's quite a right. Maybe we can try and sneak them underneath of the sand a little bit there, if at all possible. Just to add a little bit to it. We got one going in there. Probably that should be pretty good. I know I saved the spot on the other side that I wanted another one. I'm just filling this up super slow, guys. I'm still not convinced that I want to go as high as I've gone with this, but I don't really have a lot of options at this point now. I've kind of already committed. So I guess that's where we're going to be. Now, you're going to see as I'm filling this, that there's a fair bit of bubbles and a fair bit of this sand on the top. That's quite normal, especially when you didn't wash it like I did. You can see the water's still pretty clear. Not too worried about it, guys. I'll be tossing a filter on this again shortly, and that'll clean out the bulk of the issues that are there. So really nothing to worry about with that. So I'm going to let this tank fill up, and I'll finish planting these crypts up and try and get things straightened away. And then we'll just sort of do a quick outro and talk about the setup, and we'll leave it there. So I'll see you again shortly. Okay, well, as you can see, I just got the filter started. I'm going to try and get this secured in the right place here so we don't have to think about it again. Yeah, I should take care of things pretty quickly. Now, that is a mature filter. So essentially, I really don't need to worry about cycling this aquarium. It's already done. So what we're going to do, I'm going to let that run for a while, probably a week before I put new fish in it. In the interim time, once I get the 20-gallon emptied, I will probably take the fish that I'm going to put into here, being the Corys, the Hillstream Louch, and as many shrimp as I can gather together. Actually, I'll probably wait on the shrimp. Not sure on that one. That might be a tougher deal. Don't really have the place to keep them. They're just my Skittles shrimp. I don't really have a separate tank set up to house them in for any period of time, and I know they don't usually do too good in a brand new setup, albeit there's a lot of old, like reused wood and plants and everything in there, so we'll do what we can for the shrimp. But I thought I'd walk you through it. I know that was probably a rough way to go as far as videotaping. I'm by no stretch of the imagination a professional at this sort of thing. I will try to get better, but I was in a bit of a rush today to get this done. And reusing bits and pieces out of an aquarium that isn't completely shut down yet and ready causes a bit of an interruption from time to time. So did the best I could with the tools that I have, guys. But as I said, we're not looking for any kind of real super beautiful landscape. That's not what I'm after, and it's definitely not what I achieved. What I'm after with this is a couple of things. Number one, this is supposed to be a breed tank for live bearers. That's why I have so much dwarf sage in here, because it's just going to create a nice, thick, bushy sort of carpet area that can break line of sight for the babies, and they can get away, and hopefully they can grow out in the same tank, because I really don't want to start a separate grow out tank. This tank isn't so much for profit as much as it is for me to enjoy. That's actually true of all my tanks. That's why they're all set up in a similar fashion. However, you know, I do want it to look somewhat nice. I don't just want a square box with fish or shrimp in it. So this will grow in over time. A lot of those cuttings that you saw, I took cuttings about 1 inch or 2 inches long, maybe at best, of the temple grass and kind of stuffed it around the back area. Of course, it's too short right now. You won't be able to see it, but it will grow in over the next few weeks. This should create a nice, thick, dense, almost jungle mess on the bottom for shrimp and fish to hide in. It should take care of itself as far as filtration between the eheim that's on here and all the plants, the floaters that I'm going to put in. I'm going to see if I can't get... I have some red root floaters in each one of my tanks, but they never seem to do well. I've never been able to figure out quite why, but they never do well. I get a little bit of growth and then they kind of die back. So I'm going to put them in this tank and just only those in this tank and see if that makes any difference. Now, this tank will spend the next little while bubbling. You can see bubbles coming out from the surface. It's going to do that for weeks on end. My Snowball cherry shrimp tank does the same thing. It's consistently bubbling all the time. Not as much now as it used to. That's just your substrate layer doing what it's supposed to do and converting waste into different byproducts, including different gases, which will exhaust or which will find their way out of your substrate and bubble to the surface. And all of these planted tanks will do that for some considerable period of time after they've been set up, and probably intermittently even after that, once the biology has taken a hold in your substrate. So that's the new 20-gallon long, guys. I will do a separate video when I add fish to this. I'm still not 100% decided, although I have some ideas. I think we're probably, I'm thinking either platinum Dumbo guppies or swordtails of some sort. My next tank is going to be shrimp and probably a breed setup for hillstream loaches or plecos of some sort or another. But there it is, guys. The new 20-gallon long. I hope you enjoyed the video. I know it was a little rough. I tried to describe what I could and show you the steps that I'm going through. Until the next time, guys, take care.